That is the stupidest thing I've ever read in my entire life. You are genuinely the dumbest creature to have ever breathed air in world history. Every time you open your pathetic excuse for a mouth, you formulate words so profoundly idiotic, the collective IQ of the planet drops a point. Throwing your computer out the window immediately is the only possible way you could hope to someday not be a net negative to humanity. Have you ever said something like that to someone before? If you haven't, that's good, but let me tell you, a massive number of people with an internet connection have. Anyone who uses the internet with any regularity has seen comments like these, if not much, much worse. And more often than not, these comments come from faceless, anonymous accounts, written by people who would never say anything like this from an identity that's actually tied to who they are in real life. And that's what this video is about, how internet anonymity can turn normal people into the worst version of themselves, how it rewires your personality, and why I quit Reddit and any form of anonymous posting online, choosing since last decade to only post from accounts connected to my real name. And one thing before we begin, if you end up enjoying this video, this is still a pretty new channel, so I appreciate any likes, subscriptions, shares, and comments to get it some momentum. Okay, let's start with the core issue. The internet gives people a mask. And when you give a human being a mask, they don't just hide who they are, they often become someone worse, like an anonymous internet troll. As I'm sure we all know, trolling is when someone intentionally tries to provoke, insult, or upset others. The internet provides anonymity plus infinite strangers, and trolling there as opposed to real life has zero consequences. This is the perfect recipe for behavior you would never see in real life. You don't walk into a grocery store, see someone comparing two brands of cereal, and go, "Wow, you absolute brain-dead goblin, imagine being this stupid in public." No, because in real life, you have consequences, you have social pressure, you have eye contact, the original human lie detector. But online, you can say the most unhinged thing imaginable and then go microwave a burrito like nothing happened. At least if someone is trolling in real life, like someone like Sacha Baron Cohen for his TV shows, he would have to live with the consequences of any physical retaliation. But of course, anonymous online trolling allows people to do and say whatever they want without any repercussions. When you argue with strangers online, your brain gets a dopamine hit every time someone replies. It doesn't matter if they agree with you or call you a subhuman clown, the notification is the reward. This is the same mechanism behind slot machines and countless other modern systems built with gambling mechanics, intermittent reinforcement, those unpredictable rewards that keep you hooked. And then there's ego. Online, your ego becomes inflated because there's no social cost. You can be the smartest person in the room, the toughest person in the room, the most morally righteous person in the room, because there is no room. There's just you and a keyboard. And then identity splitting happens. You start developing a shadow self, a version of you that only exists online, a version that's more hostile, more reactive, more impulsive. The more time you spend as that version, that character, that persona, the more it bleeds into the real you, regardless of whether or not you think you're keeping it separate from your real life. This is the part nobody talks about. You don't just close Reddit after cursing out a bunch of strangers about politics and anime and then instantly become a calm, patient, emotionally regulated adult again. Your brain doesn't switch modes like a light switch like that. When would something like that have ever been possible in pre-internet times? It's not natural for our brains whatsoever. If you spend an hour arguing with strangers, you walk away irritated, you walk away tense, you walk away with your fight or flight system activated. And then what happens? You snap at your partner, you're short with your friends, you're annoyed at work, you're impatient in traffic. You've been practicing hostility. You've been rehearsing being reactive. You've been training your brain to escalate instead of de-escalate. And that practice shows up in your real life, whether you think you've kept it compartmentalized to your anonymous social media account or not. I know this intimately because I used to engage in anonymous trolling. I used to say things honestly far worse than my example in the intro, on forums under aliases, arguing about stuff with strangers that oftentimes I didn't even really believe, just as a matter of routine and addiction to the practice. Also, I did this at a time I was still addicted to alcohol, weed, porn, and competitive video games, a much, much different time for me than these days when I put all of those away. The trolling behavior absolutely bled negatively into my real life, and I realized it needed to end. So years ago, I made a rule, a simple one. I am not allowed to post anything online unless it's tied to my real identity. No burner accounts, no anonymous usernames, no hiding behind the keyboard. When your name is attached to your words, you think differently. You slow down, you choose your tone, you consider the consequences, you remember that you're talking to other real human beings. And that rule changed my entire relationship with the internet. I'm still active on social media, and I've started a Discord community about music production But everything I say on both of those places now has a link to my music, which of course can be tied to the real Thomas Dente. This is the same for most of the people that participate in that community because, well, they're making music and want to be known rather than anonymous and faceless. I chose not to post on Reddit anymore because it's a particularly anonymous platform for the most part, unlike social media, which is designed to be attached to real identities, which still doesn't stop countless people from making anonymous accounts to comment hateful and negative things there either. It's also less about creating small, intimate communities than Discord. If I'm having a particular technical issue or I need to research something in particular and the only search results that come are Reddit, I will still browse it for that reason, but I'd rather not participate in any majority anonymous internet spaces. When I was a kid, if you insulted someone, there was only really one option. You did it face to face. I guess adults before the internet could insult each other in books, newspapers, magazines, and rap diss tracks, but it wasn't available to everyone, and as a kid, these weren't yet available to me. So essentially, the only way to insult someone else was face to face. When kids did that, they saw the other kid's reaction. They felt the social pressure, and they learned boundaries and that their words can have physical consequences. Kids today, at a vulnerable age, are communicating through online multiplayer video games where they are free to scream the most vile, hateful things imaginable at strangers, and nothing happens. No consequences, no social feedback, no adult stepping in, no one saying, hey, you can't talk to people like that. They're learning communication in a consequence-free environment. And then we wonder why so many young people struggle with emotional regulation, conflict resolution, and empathy. When you grow up yelling slurs into a headset at age 7, you're not exactly building the foundation for healthy adult communication. And here's the wild part. Kids today are getting exposed to this way younger than we ever did. I didn't have the ability to anonymously scream at strangers until I was like 17. These kids are doing it at 7. They're learning the worst communication habits before they even learn multiplication. So for me, it became essential to voluntarily choose accountability. I quit Reddit. I quit anonymous posting. I quit arguing with strangers. I'm not going to say I never argued with people on the internet again, because I have in my Discord and a few times in YouTube comments and Instagram comments. But these comments are always tied to the real Thomas Dente. There are things I truly believe and stand behind. When I was engaging in internet trolling, some of the shit I said was more for the dopamine rush of the response than things I actually believed. So simply put, when you remove anonymity, you remove the mask. And when you remove the mask, you're forced to be the same person online that you are offline. The results were genuinely transformative for me. I became more patient, more focused, less reactive, and less compulsive. I suddenly had more time for my work, my relationships, and my goals. My mind felt quieter, my life felt calmer. It might sound silly to some people, but I considered anonymous arguing one of my 5 major vices, right alongside alcohol, weed, porn, and competitive video games. At certain points in my life, I was genuinely addicted to anonymous trolling. Creating this maxim, I am not allowed to post anything online unless it's tied to my real identity, changed my life in a major way. Most importantly, I stopped hurting people with anonymous, incendiary comments. I stopped even wanting to. When I look back at the times I behaved that way, I see the actions of a hurt, addicted version of myself. I'm grateful not to be that person anymore. I stopped rehearsing the worst version of myself online, and like I said earlier, that's not something you can keep separate from your real life. I genuinely believe that anyone who engages in online trolling eventually has that behavior bleed into their offline world sooner or later, and often in profoundly negative ways. Here's another thing I learned along the way about being on the receiving end of comments like the ones hurt, addictive Thomas many years ago might have said. If someone criticizes you or your opinions online, and they're not playing by these same rules I've outlined above, meaning they're anonymous, they're hiding behind a username, they have no identity, no reputation, no skin in the game, why take it seriously? Think about it. If a respected expert in your field gives you feedback, that's valuable. If someone accomplished, someone with a real name, a real face, a real reputation says, hey, here's something you could improve, that's worth listening to. But some random username with a cartoon frog profile picture, why would you let that person shape your self-esteem? Why would you let that person influence your mood? They could be 7. They could be miserable. They could not even mean what they're saying. They're simply going for the dopamine hit they could get from your reaction. They could be literally anyone. If someone won't attach their identity to their opinion, you don't owe it a reaction. Many people have never engaged in this behavior, and if you haven't, that is absolutely great. You should never start. But if you do engage in the behavior I've outlined above and you feel like the internet is making you a worse person, you're not imagining it. It probably is. Try the rule I proposed. I am not allowed to post anything online unless it's tied to my real identity. Try stepping away from anonymous arguments. Try giving your brain a break from the hostility. You might be shocked at how quickly your life improves. And if you got something out of this video, again, this is still a pretty new channel, so any likes, comments, shares, or subscriptions genuinely help me out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.